Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to another short war video, and today we have very big news coming out of Russia and Ukraine. But by far our biggest piece of news of the day is coming out of Russia, as we have gotten an extremely bold claim from the Russian military claiming that Putin's helicopter was forced to shoot down drones while he was aboard a few days back, and that the Russian president's aircraft was allegedly involved in an air defense battle according to a top Russian military commander. So that is an extremely bold claim, and we have all the details here in the video to cover with you today. We also have very big news as well that Britain, France, Germany, and the United States have lifted restrictions on the range of military supplies to Ukraine in a very big and bold move as well. And we've also gotten word that Ukraine launched another massive drone attack on Russia last night, targeting Moscow and FSB border stations. And also we got word that Russia launched brand new assaults on the Sumy region of Ukraine, as soldiers in that area are reporting that offensives have begun. So very big news to cover today, and let's jump into our first post, which goes to the Kyiv Independent. And this is by far our biggest story of the day. Right now we're getting an extremely wild claim from the Russian military, and of course take it with a grain of salt because this is what they're claiming, but of course the Russian military likes to lie quite a bit. But this is the claim they're making. They are saying that Putin's helicopter was at the epicenter of a Ukrainian drone attack, and the helicopter had to ward off the drones from actually striking the president's aircraft. So a very big crazy claim right here, and we have some details about it down below. We can see that this incident allegedly happened on May the 20th in Russia's Kursk Oblast. So they're claiming the drones were in Kursk, and it came very close to hitting Putin's helicopter. Also, we do see here that they were engaged in an air defense battle. They were trying to ensure security for the president's helicopter flight, and the helicopter was at the epicenter of this massive attack. So really crazy to hear, but of course we don't have any actual independent observations showing that this is true. But they are claiming and trying to make it seem like Putin was being directly targeted by these drones coming in. So it's basically up to you to whether or not you believe this or not. But once again, they're trying to make the Russian people believe that Putin was targeted by Ukraine directly. So that could be an attempt for a false flag or maybe a dangerous escalation that Russia is trying to put forward. So that is that massive story. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to the Kyiv Post. And on another piece of news here, we have very positive information that Germany, France, the UK, and US lift all range limits on Ukraine's attacks inside of Russia, according to German Chancellor Merz. And Merz said, quote unquote, "There are no longer any limitations on the range of weapons supplied to Ukraine, not from the British, not from the French, and not from us, and none from the Americans either." So that is a very big one right here. They've lifted all range limits on all weapons going to Ukraine, and that will allow Ukraine to strike much deeper into Russia using these various different weapons. Also, by the way, we are expecting that the Taurus missiles will be going to Ukraine very soon, as the new chancellor has taken office. As you can see, he's making the statement right here, and that will also be a very big escalation as well. So it sounds like a lot of restrictions being lifted, and the big one here is the Americans have lifted it as well. And right now America's been a little bit on the fence with how much they're going to support Ukraine, but this is a pretty direct step here to actually strike Russia directly, according to what Merz is saying. So a very bold move. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to War Translated. And this post right here gives us some more context as to exactly how far Ukraine can strike into Russian territory using these Western weapons. And we actually have a map here that's been provided by War Translated. And as we can see, here are all the different weapons on the right, and here's the map showing the different ranges that these weapons can actually strike. So starting with the first one here, we can see that the Storm Shadow and Scout missile goes about 250 kilometers into Russian territory. Then our second one here appears to be a Ukrainian-made missile that goes 280 kilometers in. The third being the ATACMS, which is American provided, going about 300 kilometers. And then we have another Ukrainian missile. I believe this might be the Neptune missile that goes about 400 kilometers. And finally, we have the range of the Taurus missile that Germany is expected to provide to Ukraine very soon, that will go about 500 plus kilometers right into Russia and could potentially get very close to reaching Moscow, according to this range map right here. So that is a very, very good visualization showing you how far these weapons can go and just how critical it would be to get the Taurus missile inside of Ukraine to strike various different areas. So a very big and good map there showing us those ranges. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to the Ukrainian Review. And in this post right here, we learn that Russia has launched assault operations on the Sumy region, and the Russian armed forces are trying to advance in the area. And the spokesperson of the State Border Service of Ukraine emphasizes that the occupiers have become the most active in the areas of the village of Basivka and Zaravka. And he also confirms the movement of assault troops in the areas of Veselivka and some other places as well. And they are trying to break through the border and into the territory, but the armed forces of Ukraine are repelling and restraining the enemy successfully. And meanwhile, Russia is becoming increasingly aggressive on the battlefield, and they are massively shelling our positions with artillery and dropping drones and cabs. So we can see right here, the Russians are moving on this area. You can see right here the directions of attack on this region, and this is getting to be quite severe. This is not expected to be the summer offensive, but this is early assaults before the main push of the Russian summer offensive. So we are seeing that here on the map, and once again, this is just a prelude to a much larger attack coming probably sometime in mid-June. So that is the beginning stages right here on the map. But jumping into our next post here, this one's going to go to Polymarket Intel. And in this post right here, we can see that Vladimir Putin is now publicly trying to defend his war record inside of Ukraine because apparently he's getting some pushback from ministers or other people that's within his inner circle. So we can see here that Putin said today, and we're going to watch the video here in just a second, that the West literally forced us to do what we're doing right now, waging war on Ukraine, and now the West is trying to blame Russia for this. So once again, the West didn't force Putin to invade sovereign countries by any means whatsoever. But what this does indicate, though, is Putin is apparently under some fire and under pressure to get this war concluded very quickly because it's been going on for way too long, and now he's addressing it in the public. So let's take a look and see what he had to say and also hear the desperation in Putin's voice. And Putin says, "I'm not going to get into political issues here, but you see, it was not us who organized the coup d'etat in Ukraine. We were told all the time that there should be democracy, elections. They, the West, organized a coup d'etat and that's it, and if that's the way it should be done, a bloody one at that, and then they went on suppressing Donbass and killing people from helicopters and planes, which is ridiculous." Putin also says, "They simply forced us to do what we're doing now, which is to wage war. And they are trying to make us to blame for this." And you know, something interesting here, I noticed the facial expression on this guy right here. He really doesn't even believe the BS that Putin's spewing right now either, and he really can't hide it on his face either, which is very dangerous to do right in Putin's presence. But as you can see, his own people really aren't buying this story. So really a wild narrative that Putin's putting forward here, and once again, it indicates desperation. It indicates also a complete delusional mindset that he's even trying to make people believe this, because it's really unbelievable, that story they just try to put forward right there. So just pure insanity, and I'm not really sure what to make of it, except it's crazy. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Null Reports. And also moving on to our next big piece of news here, we also saw another massive drone attack on Russia that was overnight and also into the early morning hours of today. We saw an explosive morning in Russia with the Ukrainian UAVs. Besides targeting a Shahed drone plant, they also attacked a chemical factory in the Ivanovo region and an alloy plant. And reports suggest over 100 plus drones again, and in Tula alone, over 12 explosions were reported and power reportedly went out in several districts. So let's take a look at some videos here and see the extent of the attack that was last night and into the morning hours. So there it is. That appears to be one drone going straight for a target right here. And we can see it just impacted there on this location. It appears to be striking some type of manufacturing plant or a production facility here right there on the top of it. So a very big hit, and let's take a look at our second video. And there you can see it, a very low-flying Ukrainian drone right there in the sky. It appears to be going straight for that alloy plant they mentioned in the post earlier, and that appears to be a Bayraktar TB2 most likely, and it's going straight for its target, and it's flying right over the city and straight toward the alloy plant. Run and hide, блядь. And there it hit. It hit right there on the alloy plant. Right there you can see the big smoke coming up from it. And there was Ivan right there screaming and yelling about it hitting the plant. So a very big hit right there on the camera. And that was our second video showing some of these massive strikes. So with that, we're now going to move on to our next post here. And this one goes to Max 25. And not only did we see production facilities getting hit, but we also saw in the Moscow region some more drone hits as well in the early morning hours of today. So let's take a look at this. The Russians were using small arms fire to try to shoot it down. And it looks like they might have gotten it. So let's take a look at the video and see what happened. And there goes the drone right there. As you can see, the Russians are trying to shoot it down right there on the camera, and the drone is still flying over, and it's still going through all the fire, and it looks like the Russians actually got that one. Actually, they were actually able to have a miracle there and actually shoot it down, which is very rare for them, because unless they have something that's targeted and basically heat-seeking, then they usually can't shoot that kind of stuff down. So very interesting. They did get one, and that was near the Moscow region. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Status 6 Military and Conflict News. We also got word as well that Ukraine struck a FSB border post near the Belgorod Oblast of Russia using Western-supplied aerial-guided bombs, reportedly a French-made weapon, and it looks like it hit directly on the FSB border post. So let's take a look at this one and see the massive hit, literally right on the FSB building. And right here you can see there's the FSB building and the compound, and it was literally decimated. Whatever hit that, I guess it was a French-made hammer weapon. I guess it hit right in the middle of it and split the building in half basically, and that was an FSB border post for spying and also Russian national security. So that was a hell of a hit right there, a very bold hit, and it looks like it took the whole building down. So I think that's going to be pretty much useless at this point, and once again, a dead-on hit by the Ukrainian forces. So very impressive to see. But moving on to our next post here, this one goes to war translated. And right here in this post, I have a video to show you, which is basically a spy movie thriller plot right here. And in the Zaporizhzhia direction, pilots of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine targeted and struck a Russian fuel train and literally hit the train as it was moving down the tracks, which is insane to see. Like, the video is actually very impressive. I've never really seen anything quite like this. So let's take a look and see them hitting the train and also blowing it up and causing severe damage to the entire train. So let's take a look. And as you can see, there's a drone going right for this moving train, this Russian fuel train, and there's a bunch of fuel cars behind it. And look at that. It hit right on one of the cargo vessels right there on the train itself, and there it blew it up. And it blew up right in the middle of the train. It looks like the train had to come to an emergency stop, and this thing is burning up badly. So we don't know just how bad this fire is going to get. It could be the entire train gets lost, but this is a pretty massive fire. And I'm really not sure if the fire department's anywhere nearby to be able to put that out. And even if they are nearby, they're pretty incompetent. So there's no guarantee they will put it out. But just really wild footage, like a spy movie thriller, like I said. So very cool to see. But moving into our next post here, this one goes to Polymarket Intel. And we also got to see, in addition to the train getting hit, we also saw a Ukrainian strike on the Russian airbase of Migalovo overnight. And we did see some more Russian air defense fire trying to shoot down these drones before they hit the target. But we did see some impacts on the ground, so it did strike, and the Russians failed to shoot these down. So let's take a look at this video. And you can see right there goes all the anti-aircraft fire right there. And there's a huge explosion right there on Migalovo base, and it did hit it quite badly. So once again, another direct hit, and the Russians were not able to shoot that down. So very impressive once again, just to show you that damage there on that Russian air base. But moving on to our next post, this one goes to Inside Geopolitics. And we've also got some news on a different front about the U.S. relations with Russia, because once again, those relations have been a little bit unpredictable and a little bit confusing over the past few months, and we're now getting some clarification about where that relationship stands. So today, we've heard the U.S. president called Putin crazy in a Truth Social post and said he's lost his mind and he's gone berserk after Russia's largest attack on Ukraine that we saw yesterday, and the U.S. is considering sanctions on Russia. Now, whether or not sanctions happen, that's a whole nother issue. I'm not really sure if that's going to happen, but we are seeing here a public name-calling here toward Putin by the U.S. president, calling Putin crazy, and once again, that is crossing a line that has not been crossed before, so that might be indicating that the relationship has totally broken down behind the scenes, and there's pretty much no progress being made. So that's a pretty big one right there. The war did not end in 3 days, and now Putin's being called crazy. So quite a shift when it comes to a geopolitical sense. But moving into our next post, this one goes to Samuel Romani. And we've also gotten some very positive news that the Netherlands has now sent the last of its pledged 24 F-16 jets to Ukraine, and that is also extremely good news because now even more F-16s are being sent, and unfortunately Ukraine has lost 1 or 2 of those F-16s that were originally sent, so they do need some more to be able to back that up. And of course, they are in the midst of a war, so 1 or 2 jets getting shot down or crashing is not that big of a deal. It's obviously unfortunate and very disappointing, but it's not that big of a deal because, of course, if you look at India and Pakistan, they got fighter jets shooting down left and right. So, Ukraine's doing pretty good on that standard right there. But with that, we're now moving on to our last article of the day, and this one goes to Nexta. And this is a very interesting and also very disturbing story that we're hearing today. We're hearing that according to Build, that residents flee the Suwalki corridor amid rising tensions between Russia and the West, and amid these escalating tensions, residents of the strategically vital Suwalki corridor have begun leaving the region en masse, according to Build, and this narrow strip of land, about 65 kilometers wide, lies between Poland and Lithuania, and it separates Belarus from Kaliningrad and is considered NATO's most vulnerable point, and military analysts warn that in the event of war, Russia could strike from both sides, and Russian artillery, with a range of over 30 kilometers, can cover the entire corridor, potentially cutting off the Baltic states from the rest of Europe, and this, of course, is getting the locals very scared, and the locals have been quoted saying that they don't want to be the first ones to get hit if the war does pop off between these two countries. And just to show you right here on the map, here is a map showing the Suwalki corridor right there in red, and there's obviously Kaliningrad right over here where the Russians are at. So a very, very interesting situation, and also very disturbing for Poland and also the citizens of the surrounding Baltic states, because of course if you live here, you're thinking that if the shelling starts or the war starts and it looks just like the opening days of Ukraine, they're going to be literally right in the line of fire. So it's apparently being taken so seriously that they're actually leaving the area and moving away. So that's quite serious, and once again shows the psychological effect of the rising tensions on regular civilians every single day. So that is very interesting and also disturbing to hear, because of course that is a vital corridor that could be an attack point for Russia in the event of war. So very disturbing. But with that, that's actually our last piece of news for the day. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you have, smack the like button and also subscribe to the channel as well if you already haven't for more daily war updates just like this one. And also, if you watched the video to this point, go down to the comments and type LSA to let us know you watched to this point. That is 3 letters, LSA in the comments, to let us know you watched the entire video. Also, by the way, we will be running a stream tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern. If you want to get the rest of the news throughout the day, today and tomorrow, we will be doing that. And also, if you want to support the channel financially, you can do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership, which supports the channel greatly, and we appreciate all of our Patreon supporters very much. But with that, folks, we'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern, and with that, bye-bye for now.